Muslims of Kerala constitute a unique community of Islam from almost the time of Prophet Muhammad. This uniqueness is due to several political, geographical and social factors. Geographically, as you might know, Kerala is a narrow strip of land along the western coast of the peninsular India, which reaches almost to the tip of the peninsular India, Kanyakumari. It was an accident of history that Islam came to this part of India long before Islam became a social, political and cultural force of India. As you might know, immediately after Islam was established, Muhammad ibn Qasim overran Sindh. That was the first appearance of Islam on Indian subcontinent. The historical accident that brought Islam to this remote part of India in a quiet and without any sense of conflict, either in the minds of the believers or in the minds of the local people who readily accepted the faith as it was brought by a dependable group of traders that came to this part to sell their goods and to buy from this part of the country the goods that are available here. The trade was going on between Malabar and some of the maritime peoples of what is called West Asia now. That was going on in a very prosperous manner. It was at that time Prophet began to preach Islam. It was not a new religion according to Muslims. It is the continuation or the revival of what is called Islam. That is the original faith of mankind as they believe. So when it was brought by these traders who had established their credibility and trade credentials, the people accepted it because they had absolute implicit faith in every good, in everything that they brought to the country. It could be bought without any kind of examination, as they were very honest and sincere people. The rulers held these Arabs who came to trade, held them in high esteem because of their morality and business standards that they always kept up during a long period. So, it was in such an accidental manner that Islam came here. And the rulers, particularly the Umayyads of Malabar, there were ever so many ports along the western coast. Not only in Malabar, Muziris, in Kodungalur, as it is called Kodungalur or Kranganur in its anglicized form, was the major port. But there were other ports also along the western coast. So these Arabs came to these ports, settled down there, and they had their own communities in most of these trading centers, right from North Malabar to southernmost tip of peninsular India. So their presence was very conspicuous as traders, but not perhaps as the propagators of a faith. In fact, they did not make any active campaign for proselytizing the people of this part of the country and convert them into Islam. Of course, Islam is a proselytizing religion. But then at that time, they did not make any organized or consistent campaign. The people, because of the encouragement that the rulers of the local communities gave, they accepted Islam. It is said that there was some kind of direction from the rulers that one member of the family can become a Muslim. Because this conversion might create a kind of social integrity, and that social integrity might lead to greater contact with the people and contribute to the enlargement of the trade between these two regions, which brought, of course, prosperity. The prosperity that the area enjoyed during the period was mainly due to the trade with the foreigners. So they had a very strong vested interest in promoting this. So that went on very peacefully, and they were given all encouragement to propagate their religion or to establish at these places of worship. As you might very well know, the first Muslim prayer house or mosque was built at Kodungalur, which was destroyed recently to rebuild. Of course, it had become very dilapidated, and it was a threat to human safety also to those people who come there for prayer. So they were compelled to pull down the structure and build another mosque in that place, but not in the same manner. It is said that they have kept all the goods, all the parts that they have collected from the destroyed building. Recently, Tariq Ali, the great intellectual who came to this part of the country, expressed great shock and sorrow in the destruction of such an old historical monument. But the people of the locality consoled him by saying that it will be rebuilt because all the parts that have been kept intact, so they can easily rebuild the old structure in exactly the same manner in which it existed years ago. So that is what the people of the locality also think. They think that it was a folly that they constructed this building that is of immense historical value. So let us hope that it will come up there. But during the very prosperous days of Islam, when they were flourishing commercially as well as religiously, Ponani was a center of learning at that time. And there were great scholars, and there were educational activities, the center of which was the modern, the present Ponani. So, but all this, happy relationship with the rulers and the people, and the happy relations with the foreigners and the local people, and the calm that prevailed in this part of the country, and the prosperity that grew up, were all suddenly destroyed with the arrival of the Portuguese. The Portuguese, the Europeans, everywhere seemed to be the sole enemies of Muslims. And Portuguese people were particularly bent upon destroying their hold that they had with the rulers and the people. So they employed all kinds of tactics, political, naval, military, and diplomatic tactics, to create a kind of gulf between the rulers and these foreigners whom they considered as foreigners, Arabs. And they want to drive them away from here. This scheming of the Portuguese people succeeded ultimately, as you might very well know. And the Muslims were either compelled to migrate to the eastern parts of the region and take to cultivation as the only alternative for them to survive in the very hostile situation that was created by the Portuguese invaders. So that from that point of history begins the decline of Islam in this part of the country, but it was not destroyed or eliminated completely. That is what we have to bear in mind. And they resisted for a long time in a very heroic manner the onslaughts of the Portuguese people. And the rulers themselves, ultimately, when it became difficult for them to continue this alliance with the Arabs, almost deserted them, almost, alienated them from their situation, from their environment. But the present condition of Muslims in Kerala is very much different from what it was at that time or from what it was later. Now with the coming of independence, the Europeans have left the country. The British people willingly left the country, and the Portuguese had to be driven away from their pockets in Goa and other places, and a few pockets that they had. And the country is free. Even in this situation, the Muslims constitute a very significant percentage of the population of the now newly formed Kerala state. At that time Malabar was part of the old composite provincial state called Madras. Now, at that time Malabar was only a very neglected district of the composite state of Madras. Now they constitute a very significant part of the state of Kerala, along with the princely states of Cochin and Travancore. Now Kerala was established in 1956, November 1, and from that period onwards, the condition of Muslims changed a little. Of course, after the independence, Muslims were looked upon by some people as a group of people who were responsible for the partition of the country. So there was a little isolation and a political inactivity during that period. Then, with the coming of democracy based on adult franchise, they realized that this is an opportunity for us also to assert ourselves, our political rights, instead of sulking at that situation. So they began to take part in the political activity of the state. And some of the old people who were followers of Indian Union Muslim League, or the All India Muslim League, they wanted to revive the Muslim League in a different manner. Of course, accepting the fact that India is a sovereign country, politically independent, in which all have equal rights, political and social rights. So, in spite of the opposition of a vast section of Muslims themselves, these people from Malabar were determined to revive Muslim League and to make it an instrument in removing the socio-economic and educational backwardness of their community. The organization also put up candidates at that time. It continued for a long time till 1956 as part of the old Madras province. So they could return 5 or 6 Muslim League nominees to the then provincial assembly, Madras assembly. And they became a very, even though small group, that group became a very determining factor in the politics of the large Madras state. And this recognition that they got, political recognition, and the social recognition that followed, made them a little more self-conscious, self-confident, and they engaged in other activities also, educational activities also. Not particularly by the Muslim League, other groups also came up. For example, Muslim Educational Society, established by Dr. P.K. Abdul Ghafoor. He was the person who took initiative in this matter. And they concentrated on the educational upliftment and progress of the Muslim community, particularly in Malabar. The Muslims of Travancore and Cochin were comparatively better off in the matter of education, but still they were lagging behind the advanced communities like the Nayars and Christians of Travancore and Cochin. So with the formation of the state of Kerala, the political clout of Muslim League increased because they could return a substantial number of their nominees to the assembly, and they began to play a part in spite of the opposition of some people, as they considered Muslim League politics as very sectarian politics. And things were going on like that. But in the meantime, there was a kind of, now the landscape of the Muslims of Kerala and the physical landscape of Kerala also have undergone a substantial change. If you look at the physical landscape, you can see very noticeable changes. So also this change is reflected in the minds of Muslims. They think of a kind of reform, how to reform their religion. For a man who looks at the socio-political landscape of Kerala, particularly of Malabar, he will be surprised by a bewildering number of organizations of various kinds of Muslims. Some established to propagate new ideas on religion. Reformist. There are several reformist movements in Islam, and some of the movements came here sufficiently early, and some movements are making their appearance now. There might be very little difference between some organizations and the other, but they are very vigorously pursuing their objectives, making use of modern media and even old print media. And these organizations sometimes come into conflict with the objectives of the Muslim League, who wanted to enlarge the base of their political power. And the work of these organizations, in fact, create a kind of division in the society. And some of these organizations are progressive in their outlook, but there are those that are very conservative in their socio-religious outlook. So how to reconcile these two groups and make use of them politically in mobilizing the support is the problem that Muslim League faces. They are in a kind of dilemma, and they sometimes find it difficult to keep on their side these different sects and organizations who do not see eye to each other. They are, at loggerheads always. So how to, keep them united so that the political power of the Muslims or Muslim League is not lost. And the flurry of activities that we find there, I don't know whether they are good omens for future, unless there is some kind of, clarification and, clearing of the situation. The common people will be very much bewildered and will find it very difficult to take a stand on their own. Of course, educational progress is contributing considerably to the socio-political awakening of the common people. But even then, there are backward pockets, and Malabar is not educationally so advanced or socially so progressive as the rest of southern Kerala. So they are trying to keep up. In some respects, they are ahead of these southern people, particularly in their enthusiasm to catch up with the rest of the country and with the rest of the Kerala society itself. So those activities are of course encouraging. But the present situation is a little confusing and a little unclear. What will emerge from this situation is a little difficult to predict at this moment of time. So perhaps, all these activities might contribute to a kind of general awakening, the ultimate result of which will be a kind of enlightenment of the people. So that way there are people who are not associated themselves with these movements in a direct manner. I am not I am not a person who is associating myself with the Muslim League or these socio-religious organizations that have come up and expanding their work in so many ways. I of course from a distance observe what exactly they are doing and what would be the impact of their activities on the society in future. So this is a little unpredictable, and some of the sections are very conservative and their activities are very vigorous also, and a large number of people come within their fold, and they have assets also, physical assets, financial assets and popular assets. That means the support of the people. And they have large plans to bring the entire community and the region within their direct control or their influence, direct influence. And there might be a time when there might be conflicts within this. But if these conflicts degenerate into a kind of sectarian fights, that would spell disaster to the progress of the society at large.